Hello, everybody. Dara Stewart here. Welcome to season 3 of the Inner Insights podcast. I'm really excited for this episode with Dr. Brian Pennie. He is a doctor of psychology, a neuroscientist, and a lecturer at Ireland's 2 top universities. He's featured in the RTE documentary Hooked, sharing about his powerful story of addiction to recovery. And he now coaches some of Ireland's most influential leaders. I know you will really enjoy this conversation as much as I did, so make sure to listen all the way to the end, where Brian gives some really useful and valuable information. Well, Dr. Brian Pennie, it's wonderful to have you here in the studio.
It's great to be here, Dara. I'm really looking forward to this chat. It's been too long since we had our first conversation. So
yeah, and that kind of felt like a podcast. It was one of those beautiful conversations. We were just going. I was like, oh God, I should have recorded
that.
Yeah, absolutely. But great to have you here. You've been absolutely flying it the last few years.
God, it's been a quick few years, I have to say. Yeah, it's been great. It's been great. But I am looking to slow down now. Next year's all about slowing down. Yeah.
Well, next year, I think next year is the year of the horse. So they say it's like, forward momentum, keep going.
Oh, is it? Don't tell me that.
Yeah. This year is a snake, so we're shedding the layers, shedding the skins, what doesn't serve us anymore.
I got that mixed up.
Well, yeah. Wonderful. So how's that kind of lifestyle shift happening for you?
It's been great. Like business wise, everything sort of speeded up. Like I done a documentary on RT last year. That was a huge shift. But behind the scenes of all of that, like the corporate speaking has really gotten legs. The programs I deliver have gotten legs. I do a lot of work with prisons and deaf schools as well. That's sort of me pro bono work. That's sort of been building up as well. So I think I've had this sort of next year, although I says I'm slowing down, it's speeding up in real priority areas. Yeah. So I'm really focusing, but saying no to the things that were like 6 or 7 out of 10s. So saying no to them so I can say yes to family. So it's not that I'm slowing down per se. I'm just focusing on connection. But it's been a great journey, and just finding out. I think you always have to be like a little scientist. Like what works for you? What's working for you personally, professionally? And it's been a journey. It's a great journey. Yeah, love it.
Yeah, love that. I remember you said to me, and something that really stuck from that conversation was, does this make my boat go faster?
That is, and you know what? The last 2 years has not been making my boat go faster in terms of several of my core values.
Okay.
Like my shift in perspective post addiction, that shift in perspective I had, it was a very spiritual perspective. Hence probably my interest around psychedelics and stuff like that as well. And when I wrote the book in 2020, COVID, the business really took off. It was like life got fast. So it pulled me away from that spiritual life, being more present, being more slow, being more connected with nature, even though I haven't lost them things, just not as connected. So I think that's what's pulling me back. And my boat basically is the core values in my life. And a couple of core values, it's like boldness. I love to be bold, put myself out there. Connection, family, relationships, energy is a key value, and health is a key value as well. But I think inner peace is something that's rising up that hierarchy of values. And it's like, that's what's pulling me, and that's going to make my boat go faster,
Yeah, I love that. Like, how can you protect your peace? And
that's it.
If you're not in a peaceful state or in a healthy state, then you're just giving from a half empty cup. And, it's a one-way ticket to burnout.
Yeah, and that's success for me. Inner peace is success. That's what success is.
Yeah, I love that. I had a conversation with someone there the other day around, like, what does success mean to you, and I think a lot of people have like accolades up there, getting those pieces of paper and money. But yeah, what does it kind of mean to you?
It does mean multiple things. I think inner peace fundamentally is the top of the pyramid. But I think around that, what brings you inner peace? Obviously, it's your connection, your relationship with yourself, and a sense of calm, your connection with other people. I think that's very high up the list as well. Health is critical. Like, there's no inner peace without good physical and mental health. So that's really key as well. So, and then obviously as well, if you think of those experiences and having that inner peace, like that's where it gets a little bit murky. Like, you need to have money. The currency of the world is money. Like, I want to have experiences. I love skiing. Like, that's my spiritual home. I love going with family, the exercise. So you need money to ski, like, so it's a combination of all of those things. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the Buddha and many other spiritual teachers, they found that inner peace like away from the Western world, like, you
Yeah.
know. So it is there. It's within you
Mm.
all of the time. So we can talk about all these other things that get in the way. But success, I think, at the end of the day, is that peaceful relationship with yourself.
Mm.
But unless you're living in Tibet or Nepal or something like that, if you're living in this world,
Yeah.
like it gets murky.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I remember learning about that. You know, you can like renunciate the world, you can get rid of everything around you, but if you kind of don't have that internal peace with
Yeah,
yourself, you know, it's just going to follow you around. And
yeah.
you kind of talk a lot about that, you know, from your recovery, this kind of like voice you had in your head and the overthinking and the anxiety and like what was your real kind of like shift with all of that internal kind of dialogue?
Yeah, so I suppose there was a fundamental belief system that
Mm.
I had in my mind as a kid growing up. I had a couple of traumas in my life, and it resulted in chronic anxiety and panic attacks. And I think the narrative in my voice, a belief that was verbal, was I can't cope with anxiety.
Mm.
I just couldn't cope with anxiety, and I was terrified of anxiety. I needed to find drugs to escape that anxiety. And that sort of resulted in a fear that my family would die. So they were sort of the deeper fears and the deeper belief systems that sort of drove my existence pre recovery
Yeah.
when I was in addiction. But I remember when I had that shift in perspective, it was through a near death experience. I had a very violent seizure. It shook me to the core. And it was a couple of weeks later, I was in, but it was post detox when I had that real spiritual shift, which was really deep and
Mm.
profound. But I remember I just felt incredible. I was in a heroin detox after
Mhm.
15 years of heroin addiction, and I felt amazing. If I could go back to any time in life, I would go back to that moment. It was like the world was glowing. But I was very, I suppose, young in my recovery. And I remember when I went to a subsequent treatment center, I was doing a meditation, and the guy was saying, voices will come in, let them go, and they will go out. And I was like, I think I was like waiting for the voices to come in. And there was just this, I noticed silence.
Mm.
And I was like, wow, that's so silent in there. And I had a quick realization that wasn't like that before. That was like my mind was busy, compulsively thinking,
I know all about that.
constantly worrying,
Yeah.
worrying,
Yeah.
worrying, driving the anxiety.
Mm.
And that sort of set me on. It was one of the elements that set me on that path of academia as well to do the PhD. Was why was I so broken psychologically and emotionally and that mental, that inner dialogue? And why did I now feel so peaceful? And what's it to do with that inner voice being quietened down? So that set me on a trajectory, sort of studying the relationship between language and emotions. And I went into this sort of obsession with this theory, relational frame theory, that looks at language and how we speak to ourselves and the psychological functions that go with that. But it was that stillness, that peace, and I think non-verbal had a lot to do with that. And it set me on a pathway, a very spiritual pathway as well, of meditation,
Yeah.
breath work, spirituality, and sort of studying the ancient texts.
Mhm.
And I think Taoism, like I really was aligned with Taoism.
Oh,
And
nice.
it's like, I think one of the fundamental truths, like the Tao is the way,
Mhm.
but if you name it, you lose it. And
Mm.
those who say don't know, those who know don't say. And I was like, right, it's non-verbal. It's like language gets in the way.
Yes.
And
Mhm.
it's even like, I don't know how true it is, but it's like if you go back to Christianity as well, like Buddhism, it's dukkha, life is suffering.
Yeah.
In Hinduism, it's the mind is maya, delusion. It's all
Yeah.
that verbal narratives and the emotions that go with it. And even in Christianity, it's the sin,
Mhm.
which people think to sin is to do something bad, but it's actually to miss the point of life, which
Mm.
is presence,
Mhm.
which is inner peace. And there was another scripture I loved. I didn't really study Christianity. I think I heard this somewhere else. It was Eckhart Tolle, actually. And he says, to enter the kingdom of heaven, you must return as children. And people thought that was to go up to the God with the beard up in the
Yeah.
sky. But it's not. The kingdom of heaven is presence.
Mhm.
And we must unlearn all that crap we learned. That's returning as children. So it's the unconditioning, the unprogramming. And I think that's what happened. Some kind of shift in perspective where it was a pivotal unlearning experience, I'd say, is
Mm.
probably what it was.
Wow. Yeah.
Mm.
I know from my own work and the work in spirituality and personal development, it's not necessarily about, what you're what you're absorbing or what you're taking on. It's kind of like, what can you let go of?
What are you letting go of? Like the snake shedding its skin.
Yeah, yeah. What can you shed? You know, what can you
Yeah,
shed? What can you get rid
yeah.
of? And I think that's the true signal of growth. You know, we always think growth of getting more, but it's actually like how much can you let go of? And I think the spiritual path is the path of unlearning everything that you thought you knew, and most of the stuff that you know is conditioning and passed down and intergenerational stuff, and not necessarily what you've probably found out for yourself.
What makes your boat go faster?
What makes my boat go faster? I know what drives me in the work is like trying to alleviate suffering, because I feel like I've suffered a lot in my own life. Kind of similar story to yourself. You know, when I was in Trinity doing my PhD, kind of had that breakdown moment of I was really struggling with anxiety. I had depression. I was drinking a lot more than I had ever drank. I was very lucky because I was never like addicted to anything. Yeah. Well, I had addictions.
You weren't susceptible at that deeper level.
Yeah, it wasn't chronic or anything, but it was definitely leaning on stuff, you know.
Could have gotten there.
Yeah, yeah. Oh no, absolutely. I was a one-way ticket to disaster town for sure. I think that own kind of self-discovery journey helped me reduce my own suffering. And then I pretty much was feeling the suffering of my family and everything around me. Yeah. So I was like, how can I facilitate other people's healing and suffering, and just seeing how like messed up the world is. And some of my early when I was in my early days of my PhD, 2 of my colleagues killed themselves, were taken by suicide. Wow. And that's why I started the men's work. And then I was like, God, we need to help people in this country. We need to help men.
So much suicide is everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, kind of like now what really drives me is that mission of trying to help others. Yeah. And then also, you know, my value is playfulness, you know, laughing, enjoying life.
It's one of mine as well.
Not taking life too seriously.
Don't take yourself too seriously, yeah.
Yeah, I love the work of Alan Watts. You know, if you're working, you're not making a play, then you know, what are you doing? Yeah, he's great. So yeah, those things, definitely drive me in life. And just, I have this like deep love of humans, you know, deep love of human beings, and I see the potential in everybody and want to kind of elevate people to that place. And, you know, I went on a deep journey of having compassion for myself and trying to embody that and hold that for everybody and see everyone as a human being. Yeah.
That's beautiful. It aligns a little bit with sort of a mission I have in life as well, because I remember hearing a story. It said, do you ever read any of the work of Anthony DeMello?
I love Anthony. He's one of my OG teachers.
Oh,
for sure.
Same here. Yeah. I read the book Awareness. I always say I read it every year, but I haven't read it in 2 years, so I need to stop saying I read it every year. I used to read it every year. I need to get into it again. Every time I read it, I get something different from it. It's a nice short book. But the story at the start of that book with the chicken and the eagle, and I'll tell it for anyone that hasn't heard it. So this farmer walked out of his yard one day and he found an eagle's egg had fallen from the tree, and he couldn't get the egg back up into the tree. So he put it in his chicken coop. So a couple of days later, the little eagle hatched out of the egg, looked around, thought he was a chicken. Yeah. So he started acting like a chicken, clucking like a chicken, scratching the earth like a chicken, copying all his chicken pals. And months went by, years went by, little eagle thought he was a chicken. And then one day, this golden eagle soared in the sky, and he's like, wow, what's that? And the chickens were like, that's the golden eagle, the king of the skies. But we're just lowly chickens. We belong to the earth, and that's all we'll ever be. Yeah. And tragically, little eagle died thinking he was a chicken. And what Anthony DeMello was trying to say was that so many people in the world are eagles living like chickens through like what we talked about, limiting beliefs, negative self-talk, stress, anxiety, panic, the environment just holding them back. And I remember thinking, I was living in a drug-riddled chicken coop for so long. I'm a bloody eagle. I want to soar. I felt that spiritual shift was giving me the boldness and the drive to go out there. And part of my mission is sort of unleashing that potential in people. And again, it's unlayering. It's that peeling away the layers that keep people thinking that they're locked in a box, those limiting beliefs, like feeling like you're not good enough. It's just such a powerful belief for so many people. And I say it's a big driver of suicide as well, like a lack of purpose for men especially, you know?
Yeah, lack of purpose, and, you know, people not really realizing their own gifts in medicine and their own inner genius as well, you know, like everybody has massive strengths, massive gifts, huge medicine to offer to everybody around them.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like getting in touch with that, connecting to that, and building up the self-worth and the confidence to be able to, give that to people, or do that in the world.
Yeah.
So that's a big part of my work with men, is like helping them get to that place of like, this is what you're here to do, and this is what you're here to offer, and go for it, Like ultimately it's like, you don't need me to give you permission. You have to give yourself permission.
Yeah.
But sometimes it can be really nice to be mirrored that and be like,
to realize their potential nearly.
Yeah.
I remember hearing something one time, it gave me shivers. It was like the definition of hell. On your last day on earth, the person you could have become meets the person you became. And I think it gave me shivers because I thought of, right, I could have died as an addict so many times. So imagine on my deathbed, I seen the version of who I am now or who I'll be in the future. Like the great life I live today, and I just didn't know about that potential. And everyone has that within them. I just got lucky, So it's like that's part of my work as well. I'm definitely leaning more to the men's work as well, because
it's amazing.
I'm just seeing so much suicide.
Oh man.
And so many challenges, and I think I've definitely something to offer in that arena as well.
Yeah. Like I was saying, I was only over in the States there last month in Portland running a men's retreat with high doses of ketamine, it's ketamine injections in the sessions. And, the trauma that men have, there's like these kind of like underlying similarities across cultures. I think, American men, they have their own trauma. Irish men have their own trauma, and their traumas are very different, but there's always these like core elements, most of it's down to relationship with your father.
Is it?
Whether he was there or whether he was absent or whether he was present, or what you kind of you took on through the paternal line. This kind of like intergenerational trauma.
Because that passes through men, isn't it? It doesn't. I think I read that one time. Intergenerational trauma. It's sort of it's the trauma of the man, not so much the woman, which is quite interesting.
I'm not sure on that. I think it definitely comes from both sides for sure.
Right.
Yeah. But if we think back like 2 generations, a lot of the men were in like World War I and World War II, and you had these like men that came back who were absolutely like PTSD up to the eyeballs, and they couldn't emotionally connect to their families, and then the mother had to take this kind of masculine fatherly role because the men were just kind of absolutely out of it, and that bred of a generation of men who were like emotionally disconnected, and then it just gets passed on. So I think now we're in a time where men are like moving more into feeling and being with their emotions and being with their bodies. And I know like for you, a lot of your work, was coming back into feeling the body as well, and that's the kind of the core of addiction, isn't it? It's like you want to have a substance to not feel, it's not the substance itself. It's like the pain that's happening there underneath all of it and the narratives. And so it's like, no wonder so many people are struggling with addiction and trying to escape how they feel.
Escape themselves, run away from their own bodies and minds. Like it's funny because like I didn't have a drug problem or a heroin problem, even though I was addicted for 15 years. That was a symptom. That wasn't a problem. That was a symptom of the underlying problem. And for me, I had an operation as an infant without a general anesthetic. So it was a pre-1985 medical practice, crazy. Like I was literally awake during an open surgery that reorientated my intestines like crazy. And I had complications from that surgery for the first 18 months of my life. So I think as an infant, I just lived in pain. I cried for 18 months, like non-stop, and wasn't given the sufficient pain meds because they didn't believe infants experience pain like normal adults.
Wow.
Crazy. Based on this weak neurological evidence from the 1940s, these pinpricking tests. So I developed, the anxiety that I developed was very bodily, like, and it's still, I wouldn't say it's there to a certain extent. Like I'm not 100% comfortable with my own heartbeat, my pulse. If I get a blood pressure test now, it makes me uncomfortable. But with the work I've done, I'm able to sort of sit with it and lean into it, but it's far from comfortable, It's the one sort of bodily struggle I still do have. Like even when I'm talking about it, I can feel a little bit of agitation, but I have an ability to sit with that for a moment. But that's what it was. I was escaping that bodily agitation that was compounded through my mum and dad with alcoholism as well. And it was escape and avoid. That was the essence,
Yeah, escape and avoid. And I think for me, like, you mentioned a few bits on spirituality there. For me, I think it's quite a spiritual practice to be in the body, and to feel, like I've done Vipassana, which Vipassana is like
10 days.
Yeah, 10 days
Wow.
of feel the body, you know what I mean? No matter
Yeah.
how you don't want to feel this sensation, like just let it be impermanent, let it flow through. And no matter how beautiful it is, it's like, don't get attached to it.
Yeah.
Don't crave it. Just let it flow through, let it flow through. And the same way you were kind of talking about the mind and the kind of the thoughts that come in. I feel like in society, like we don't really teach people, like, are we teaching people to be with their thoughts? Are we teaching people to be with their body, their sensations? I know I certainly wasn't in school for sure, you know, and to realize that a lot of these thoughts aren't actually true, you know, they're limiting beliefs or encoded in somewhere. And, you know, people have that negative loops and pessimism. And it's like a lot of this stuff isn't necessarily true, but it's there. And it's like, how can you just like let that go? And if there are these uncomfortable feelings, it's like, all right, just be with it. It's going to move through. It's okay. You know, let the body settle.
Yeah, I think something that you said earlier really taps into that as well. It's like, it's loosely related to that playfulness. Like, I don't take myself seriously and I don't take my thoughts seriously. Sometimes I say, you're nuts. Can I hear a thought going through my head? And I nearly start laughing at it. And that's that playfulness thing. I think, you're bleeding mad. And I think that's really critical. But I think it's even more problematic than it's ever been. Like, I remember reading an article by a guy called Zat Rana, and it was one of the most beautiful articles I ever read. And it's not I can't find it anymore, unfortunately. But it was, the title of it was "The Most Important Skill Nobody Ever Taught You," and it was about sitting with your own thoughts, sitting quietly with yourself, and it's a skill that nobody teaches us. And he wrote that that was about 10 years ago, 7 or 8 years ago, before like Instagram and TikTok and all was kicking in, but it wasn't there yet. But now it's like this attention economics, and even AI is like intimacy economics. Like this technology, this technology is grabbing our attention and our emotions, and not to mention nobody's teaching us how to sit with ourselves. We haven't got the time to sit with ourselves because we're just trapped into this technology. Many people are as well anyway, you know?
Yeah.
So it's more than ever, but is it even teaching people the skill? I think the first step is we need to pull people away from the technology, and I think we're back to awareness. It's I think awareness is the holy grail. Like that's spirituality in a nutshell. Like having the awareness that you're being pulled off course, that you're being something slowing down your boat. That's the way I think about it as well. You know, what is pulling me away?
100%.
And it's many times it's these juggernauts of industry, like the food industry and the tech industry, hiring the most impressive minds in the world to hijack our brains to make these. And I often think of like, what makes me boat go faster? It's my values. It's values-based decisions. What pulls me off course? Feelings-based decisions. And I'm not talking about like intuition or gut instinct or happiness or joy, fear, anxiety, resentment, jealousy, or just chasing pleasures. Like our brains don't care about happiness. Our brains just want to avoid pain and chase pleasure. And that's what these industries are trying to do. They're hacking into that limbic part of our brain to make us spend more time on technology, eat more food, drink more alcohol, and consume. And it's a huge problem. We have no time to sit with ourselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I remember, like 6 years ago, when I went to my first 10-day silent retreat. It was Buddhist retreat up in close to the Himalayas.
Wow.
I had this narrative that, like, you know, I couldn't focus and I had a bad attention span.
Yeah.
And all the stuff that, like, you know, teachers probably told me when I was younger.
Yeah.
And over the course of those 10 days, you know, you have to lock your phone away, you have no technology or anything. I found, you know, I was reading so fast. I was so focused. I had this unbelievable concentration, I had the unbelievable peace of mind. And I realized, like, it was my attention and my concentration and focus was being messed up by the phone.
The environment was
absolutely. And, you know, still to this day, probably if I took out my phone and, you know, looked at the screen time, I'd probably be ashamed of it, you know, because it's like, it's a double-edged sword. I use it for business, but I also use it for personal. And I definitely get sucked into some of those like deep holes. And I think like, oh, you know, I'm like learning content and, you know, trying to be better. And it's just like, whoa, it's like I'm giving so much time to this this device. But I watched Hooked on RTE, the documentary.
Did you enjoy it?
I loved
Good
it.
to hear.
But,
thank you.
You know, but I think what was really striking to me was this, you know, I think we have these stereotypes of what addiction is. You know, it's like people who are alcoholics, you know, people with heroin addictions. But, you know, we have all of these kind of other types of addiction, you know, cigarettes, phone, social media,
Gambling.
gambling.
Big one.
I was really shocked by gambling, actually,
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
And
Yeah.
porn as well. You know, I deal with a lot of guys who have porn addiction,
Yeah.
and it's creating like disconnection in their relationships.
It's a monster.
Yeah,
It is a
and
monster.
it's an industry. You know,
Oh my
like
God.
OnlyFans, you have to pay money now on a subscription, and it's crazy.
I didn't realize porn
Yeah.
addiction was that bad
Yeah.
until and the impact of it as well, because it's stopping people. Like, it was sort of a human driver. Like, you
Yeah.
think like sexual drive is one of the most biggest and natural human
Mhm.
drivers we have, but now you have young kids having access to porn that they're not seeking out mates, and
Yeah.
they haven't got the ability to communicate because of the phones, and they're just leaning more into porn because that natural human drive is still there.
Yeah.
It's scary.
Yeah, no, it is. It's crazy, and it's like you were saying, it's like all of these things are out there to pull your attention and pull your awareness and your focus, and pull you off course of like where you're going.
Yeah.
And someone said to me a few years ago, if you're not paying for the product, you are the product. You know.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, because they're basically, they're using your data, and they're using your
Yeah.
attention. They're using your attention and your awareness to make money off you.
Yeah.
So I think we're in really interesting and crazy times, and I've never even thought about the AI.
Yeah.
You know, but what I was really shocked by in the, I think it was the first episode, was around the issue people are having with their phones and gambling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The funny thing with gambling was as well, there was two things that really struck me. So with the young kids, I went back to my old school, and the young kid says, "I wish TikTok was never invented."
I saw, yeah.
So they don't want TikTok. They just don't want to be left out.
Yeah.
And we have a little one. She's 11 at the moment. She hasn't got a phone. All her friends have phones, and she wants to get a phone, obviously, because she's getting left out of the groups and stuff like that. And I said, Ruby, do you want the phone, or would you want all your friends not to have phones? Oh, I wish nobody had a phone.
Yeah.
So they don't want the bloody phones. They just don't want to be left out. And it's rejection. Who wants to be left out? It's back into those evolutionary needs. But what it's doing, the gambling was really interesting as well, because something I learned about gambling, that it was predominantly a male kind of a pursuit. You go into the bookies and it's gambling. There wasn't many women go into the bookies. That's just the nature of it. But when the phone came out with gambling on the phone, all of a sudden, women's suicide from gambling is massively on the rise.
Really?
Women's gambling is massively on the rise, because they can go on, and whether it's bingo, whether it's horse racing,
It's all these little games, isn't it? Like,
yeah, but there's no judgment. You don't get judged because no one bloody knows, you know? And that's really bringing it. Now, we were over in London filming for the documentary, and there was a taxi driver asked me what you're over for. And we mentioned about addiction, and he says, oh, his friend's wife had only committed suicide. She built up a bill of over 10,000 sterling on the phone, and she couldn't live with the shame of it. So I left a note saying, I'm really, really sorry, but I can't live with the shame of this bill. And she took her own life. Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It's so sad, isn't it? And
So sad.
I think at the core of addiction, there's a lot of shame, isn't there?
Yeah.
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 Like, yeah.
It's huge. It's huge. It's and it's the challenges of it is that it compounds, because the addiction itself will bring you to, so there's something driving the addiction in the first place, and it's not necessarily always a bad thing. Sometimes it's self-enhancement. You enjoy a drink, oh, cocaine looks good, I'll try that too, but then you get addicted to it. It hijacks your brain, you do more of it, you need money, you do certain things to get more money, things you're not proud of, and then get deeper and deeper, and then that creates shame, and you do other things, and it builds, and it becomes this monster that's inescapable for many people, you know?
Yeah, I think, I'm really interested in shame over the last number of years, because I deal with it a lot in the work, especially around sexuality. And it's kind of like this core of like, I am bad, or I am, it's like this really hard identification with, you're broken, or you're wrong, or you're horrible, or there's something really terrible about yourself. And I love the work of Brené Brown,
She's amazing. She's incredible. She really is,
Yeah, she talks a lot about shame, and, I think there's that other quote around like shame dies when stories are told in safe spaces. Something like that, the quote is. But it's, the real antidote to shame is like sharing these things. Yeah.
It is, because addiction thrives in secrecy.
Okay.
Shame thrives in secrecy. The combination of addiction and shame, they go together. They thrive together in secrecy, And that's a huge problem. And I think that's why Brené Brown does a lot of work around vulnerability. So I think vulnerability is the key, and it's about speaking and sharing your feelings. And it's funny. I think it's just bringing it into reality, because when you keep that in your head, I'm a bad person, I'm so shameful, I'm so bad. It's not really real, but the dangers of it and the
Mm,
emotions of it's real. But sometimes if you talk to someone about it, it's like, just, that wasn't that big a deal. Like, I've been living with this monster inside of my head,
yeah.
and when I put it out there into the world, it's not even as big. It's not
Mm,
as dangerous as I thought it was gonna be. But it's like it's giving people permission, or a way to just put themselves out there, just take that first little step, you know?
yeah, and kind of like own those parts of yourself. And
Yeah, yeah.
one thing I love about you is like owning your story. You know, I've seen some of your lectures where you put up that picture of yourself
Yeah,
in addiction. It's like,
yeah,
you know, this was me. Like, you own it, you know, and not have shame about it. It's like, that's where I was at,
yeah.
you know?
I think it's funny. The amazing Lynn Ruan introduced
Yeah,
both of us,
yeah,
and I remember Lynn, when I was writing my book. I wasn't say I was struggling at the start, but it was like, what's the narrative? What I do? And I was getting advice off people. And Lynn had wrote her own book, and she says, just speak your truth. And I says, right, everything's gonna go in the
mm,
book. So there's nothing anyone can say about me. There's no skeletons in the closet. They're
yeah,
all in the book.
yeah,
So, well, it allows me to be free. And it was recently, when, as part of the documentary, I was doing a gig in the Helix Theatre. It was for a charity for kids' mental health. 1,000 people in the theatre. The cameras were running, huge gig, and me delivering a speaking performance. And I'd never forgotten my lines on stage up until that moment. But my mum was there for the first time, and it was when I was
yeah,
speaking about the trauma. It was like a trauma response, and I went blank on stage, staring at 1,000 people. My mind just switched off. It was
mm,
a really challenging moment. And it's really funny. Like, that should have been the worst speaking event of my life. But the vulnerability of that, like, that could have been shame, it could have been
yeah,
like fear and stuff like that. But the vulnerability of that moment, I went off stage and I came back and I got a standing ovation. Just for it wasn't a standing ovation for me. It was the crowd showing support for me. That vulnerability,
mm,
that flaw, that imperfection. I could have given a slick talk and everyone would have gone home. Oh, great talk.
mhm,
But that created something special. The emotion, the connection, the love in the room was something you had to be there to experience. It was unbelievable.
amazing.
But it was what I've done since then. And I didn't even plan it. I just says, I need to own that. There was just such connection there. So when I'm doing me speaking gigs on Connection, I show a video of me forgetting me lines on stage. And it's like, you just got to
Yeah,
own your stuff. And that's
yeah,
become a real magical. It's the core keynote I want to deliver next year. It's showing the real connection. It
mm,
lies in vulnerability. It
mhm,
really does. It
yeah.
can take us out of pain.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
absolutely, and it's realness. Like, you know, it's
Yeah.
like, I think one thing I've noticed, you know, being more on social media and in the world of like personal development and spirituality, that there's so much persona. You know, it's like people are putting up this mask of like, I'm perfect, nothing's wrong with my life. Come for me, to me for coaching or whatever. And it's like,
Yeah.
like I know that that's not real. Like,
Yeah.
you know, everyone shits, everyone farts.
Yeah.
You know, everyone like fumbles sometimes. People,
Yeah.
I make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. You know, and they're the people I'll go to, the people that are real. And it's like, you know, I did this, I messed up, I took accountability for it, or this happened to me, I learned from it, and now I've grown, and now I'm teaching it. And it's like, yeah, I want the realness. I want like,
Yeah.
and I think with us as Irish people, I think we have a fairly good bullshit radar with people like
Big
that.
time. Yeah.
And I think that's because of our survival. You know,
Yeah.
we've as Irish people, we've had to like, you know, be resilient
Be
and fight.
attuned to dangers and bullshit, because bullshit and danger can go together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So
That's interesting.
yeah, I think for us, you know what I mean, we can kind of we can smell it sometimes. And
Yeah.
I know I feel like in teachers of people I've worked with over the years, I just feel definitely more, I gravitate more to people who have that like authentic vulnerability and
Yeah.
who share the struggles and who share the messy parts. And it's just like, I want realness, you know. I don't want like a fake
Yeah.
persona,
Well
yeah,
packaged.
well curated
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
thing, you know.
And again, it's back to language as well. It's like it's non-verbal. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's a feeling. It's a
Mm,
knowing. You smell the bullshit.
mm-hmm.
Your spidey senses are going off, and you say, "Oh yeah, that's real." And I
Yeah,
think a lot of them powerful things and spirituality, I think, is predominantly it's non-verbal.
mm-hmm.
And I think that's why it's so difficult to describe spiritual experiences, because language just lets it down.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah,
Yeah.
no, for sure it does. Like we were saying there at the start, it's like kind of more that embodied, felt sense, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And when it comes to addiction, what do you think people really misunderstand about addiction?
Oh, I think the biggest misperception, and sort of three elements to it, and it's like people think, like for some people, and I think this is shifting, but some people think it's just someone's weak, like morally weak. It's a choice. You
Yeah.
chose to do a drug. Now, let's be real, like
It's not compassionate at all, is it?
no, but like everything, like ultimately is a choice.
Yes.
Like it's ultimately a choice. Like if you have the worst itch in the world and and you decide to scratch it, fundamentally, you could say, yeah, that was a choice. You could have held on for another second. And I think addiction is like an itch in a way, like it just grinds away at you, and eventually you will scratch that itch, like, you
Yeah.
know. But for people, I think it's a choice, and people are morally weak. Like it's escape and avoid. That's the true nature of addiction. And if you put the Dalai Lama, who would be a very sound of mind that could handle a lot of adversity in life. But if you put him in Guantanamo Bay and gave him enough hurt and pain psychologically and
Yeah.
emotionally for enough amount of time, I would imagine he would even want to escape that reality. And if you gave him a drug, maybe he might take it. Like you could shape someone's reality. So for someone that grew up, let's say, and I don't like the word privileged to be quite honest, but let's
Yeah.
say someone grew up in a very privileged life and thought, oh, the people that do drugs why do they take that path?
Mm-hmm.
But if you took them people and you had them getting battered and abused, probably sexually abused, whatever it is for different people, that their childhood was so painful, they never felt loved, they never felt wanted, they never felt connected, even with themselves, never mind anything else. And all of a sudden, you give them a drug that makes them feel calm and at home and good within their own bodies and a sense of escape. Like, is that a choice? It's not really a choice. And so I think fundamentally the choice idea of addiction is incorrect.
Yeah.
Now there's one in the middle there as well. It's like it's biological. And I don't think that's particularly true either.
Like this nature versus nurture kind of.
Nature versus nurture, or let's say that addiction is a genetic kind of a thing. Like you could say, right, let's say, oh, the granddad was an alcoholic, the dad was an alcoholic, and the son is an alcoholic, as an example. Say, oh, it must be genetic.
Yeah.
The granddad was traumatized. The
Yes.
dad was traumatized. The kid, it's the trauma
Yeah. It's
that is carrying through. And there is nature, nurture, like temperament is something that is genetic. So some people might be genetically or biologically more susceptible to wanting to escape pain. Like if you got 100 people in a room and you burst a balloon off the cuff without them knowing, different people will react differently based on their experiences, but based on their biology as well as temperament. Like neurons will fire and react in a different way. So there is some kind of biological susceptibility there. But there's no like addictive gene or anything like that. It's the trauma. So where does this all live at the end of the day? It's not choice. It's not biological, really. It's environment.
Yes.
That is the driver. If your environment is so challenging, your reality is so challenging, you will want to avoid and escape it. And it's that limbic part of the brain. It doesn't care about happiness. It will chase pleasure and avoid pain. It sees it as a survival mechanism. And that's what addiction is. It's giving you a false sense of safety. That's what it is. I think people misunderstand that.
Yeah, wow, yeah. And people will probably lean on whatever's available to them then as well, you know, like, and here in this country, it's alcohol, you know, it's like the number one really, isn't it?
Number one, yeah. And I think as well, because I sort of fell into the trap of, and like I had such a privilege of meeting my two of my heroes, Dr. Gabor Mate and Dr. Anna Lemke, like two legends in the world of Anna more so addiction, Gabor addiction and trauma. And having access to them was just absolutely amazing. And I think fundamentally, Gabor would say that trauma is a massive driver. I think he nearly says that all addictions are driven by trauma, and to an extent they are. But Anna didn't really agree with that, and I think that's quite interesting. My own PhD research sort of explored emotion-driven pathways to addiction. And there's positive and negative emotion-driven pathways, impulsive pathways. But let's just say, for someone, oh, it's Monday, I feel like crap, let's go for a drink.
Yeah.
Somebody might be like, it's Friday, I want to go for a drink. It's self-enhancement, you know that way?
Yeah.
Both of those can lead to addiction. One sort of hijacks the reward system through liking, wanting, and a pathological craving over time. But what will that do? That pathological craving or that wanting could get you into bad situations in life, develop shame, develop debt, develop other factors that can become traumatic in themselves, and then you're escaping the trauma and the pain of that as well. And it does become a coping mechanism. So I think it's really important. There's multiple different pathways to addiction as well. And I think people don't really understand that as well. And it's not an addiction until the consequences. Like, I don't like saying this out loud. I'm not promoting cocaine use or anything like that. But like some people can do coke the odd time and not get addicted to it. Like
Hmm.
I wouldn't call it successful cocaine use
Yeah.
because it's successful cocaine use is not using cocaine, obviously, because it will get you there if you use it. But not everyone is susceptible. It's only when the consequences become dire and you can't stop. That's when it's fundamentally an addiction.
Yeah. Wow. And I think as well, like our idea of like what an addicted person looks like is is worlds apart because I can speak for myself. Growing up, I thought like people who were addicted were the people I used to see on O'Connell Street.
Train spotting
Yeah,
people,
and
yeah.
train spotting and that kind
Yeah.
of thing. And I think over the years as well, for me, there was like this huge shift in people who have addiction are like criminals
Yeah.
to, actually they're people with mental health issues
Yeah.
and have been like dropped out by society and fallen through the cracks and that kind of thing. So I think there is a bit more of a shift now, isn't there, in
Yeah.
like how we're seeing addiction, not as like a criminality, but more so like a mental health and mental wellness issue.
Yeah. Definitely.
And then also people who can become addicted to, for example, cocaine. I've dealt with, some men in my own practice who have like, chronic cocaine use. They're doing it for work. And you're like, you look at these guys and you're like, these are well-educated people. And you're like, why are you doing that? It can get everybody, all walks of life. It's not just those people on the streets.
Yeah, it crosses all boundaries in all societies, and that's so true. And I think why it was sort of related, it's just like correlational. People think, oh, it's associated with criminality, and really, what's driving that? It's the environment, it's the
Yeah.
trauma.
Yeah.
So if you've no money, if like we need food, we need water, our basic human needs. We need money to survive, to buy these things. We also need human connection. Like we need that, like food and water. But if you come from a broken home and there's not enough food on the table and there's disconnection, they are like core needs that are just not there.
Mm.
And we will drive to get those needs. So that's where criminality can be more pervasive in certain areas where there's this lack of. So it's associated through that way,
Yes.
but it crosses all boundaries. And some of the research, I do a bit of work with Leia Healthcare actually, and they've done a big study on addiction in the workplace. And it finds the research showed that like up to 20% of people in the workplace have an addiction. 20%, that's
Wow.
1 in 5.
Oh
So if
my
I do a
God.
talk with 100 people, 20% in the audience, and
Yeah.
it might be a full-blown
Mm.
addiction, but they will have addiction issues.
Yeah.
But addiction thrives in secrecy.
Yeah.
The secrecy creates shame. That thrives in secrecy. So they will keep it to themselves, and then the mind kicks into play. We will justify, rationalize away. We're black belts in self-deception. Addiction ramps that up to another level. And all of a sudden, you're caught in a spiral. You don't know where you are. And addiction becomes an entity in itself, and it's protecting itself. It's crazy. It's so tricky.
Yeah, but it really, really, really is. And I think another big perspective shift I had was when I read about these like adverse childhood experiences, these ACE scores, where there's a bunch of different, so for people who don't know, there's like a bunch of different experiences you can have as a child, and they give you like 1 point. I think there's like eight or 10 of them. And I remember reading about the psychologist who went into one of the prisons, and he was like, everybody step in who has this one. Everybody step in who has this one. And like most of the people there in the prison who were like having like addiction issues or drug problems, they had like 5+, 5, 6+. And, this was like causing them to have these addictions, like their childhood had so many messed up moments in it that's why they were driven. And it's like, wow, can we have compassion for those people? Can we see them as not as criminals, as people who had like the worst childhoods and all of these horrendous things happened to those people? And that was a huge perspective shift for me as well. It's like, whoa.
Wow, yeah, that's what's really under the bonnet of that. There's a really interesting study that they done as well, and was looking at the line, what's the train line in the Tube in London, and I was looking at all the different stations. And what I found was if you went through all the different stations, depending on the socioeconomic status of each area, they would have different ACEs scores, different trauma scores,
Really?
and that was associated then with addiction as well. So trauma is driving that, and it's the poverty and it's the environment that's key.
Yeah, the environment and this like lack of connection. I think as well I read in one of Gabor Mate's books that when some addicts go through recovery and they get clean and then they find themselves like, living in an apartment by themselves, they've like lost all of their friends, and that's where all their addict friends, and that's where they would have got their connection needs met. And I was really kind of like, whoa, like this idea of connection, it's like there's so much, I think, in this world now, and I think you say this in Hooked, you say like that are pulling us away from the world is pulling us away from where we want to be. I think you say that in the documentary, and it's kind of like we're being pulled away from connection to ourselves and connection to others.
Yeah. Because fundamentally, if you're struggling, if your reality is painful, it's emotionally painful. So what you want to do, you want to escape that. What do? You numb that with drugs. That's what you're doing. So that's the disconnect with yourself. But then you become disconnected from other people as well as a result of that, just emotionally disconnected from other people. But I think a massive challenge as well is even for lay people, like not people struggling with addiction, the world is so busy today.
Yeah.
Between work and looking at the highlight reels of other people's lives, you're trying to match their lives, you're going on the holidays, you're working more, you're getting your kids to do all of these activities. The world is just so busy, not to mention technology and the phones, that we're disconnected from ourselves. And there's a mechanism in our brains. It's some wonderful work by Professor Kay Tai over in Stanford University, and she found a sort of network within the brain, a social homeostatic network, that when we are isolated and disconnected, dopamine is released to drive us and motivate us to go and seek human connection. But with people being so disconnected with themselves, they probably think they need a cigarette, they need a drink, they need some junk food, they need TikTok, you know? So they go and seek the thing that isn't fulfilling them up, you know? So it perpetuates that cycle, you know?
Yeah, and it's also like challenging in this country that, you know, a lot of socializing, a lot of connection is done through like pubs and alcohol and cocaine. And I know one of my friends, he's like over 100 days in alcohol recovery now and going to AA and stuff. And what he's found is he's actually lost a lot of his mates. You know, he doesn't get those text messages anymore. Are you coming down to the pub? Are you coming down for a drink? You know, and it's like a few drinks and the bag's out on a Tuesday, and then, you know, there's the same on a Thursday and the same on a Friday. And it's kind of like a bit prevalent in Ireland at the moment, I think, alcohol and cocaine use. And
it's huge.
You know, and that's people's connection. It's like people blow off steam and that's their connection. And when they start to get, like I was saying, when they start to, you know, get well again and recover, it's like they lose that connection then. It's kind of sad, isn't it, really?
Yeah. It's even the younger generation. I've heard this term several times. It's like a calorie-free drug. So the younger generation, they're not drinking as much and they're more aware of their health, but they're also more aware of how they look because of Instagram and Reels and TikTok Reels.
They've got their own addictions now, you know.
As well, so cocaine is just more prevalent on that front as well, you know.
Yeah.
And technology has an awful lot. Like I think I talk about this idea of like values are my North Star. That's what makes my boat go faster. But it's this idea of junk values, and a really core junk value is the phone. It's like a shallow sense of human connection. Oh, I feel disconnected, I'm gonna go on my phone. And I heard a story the other day. I have no idea who told me, but they said they walked into a shop, and their 11-year-old kid seen another kid that was their friend in school, and says, "Oh, look, there's Sophie. Let's make up a name." And the kid was all anxious. No, I don't want to go over and say hello. I don't want to go over and say hello. She says, "Look, that's your friend. That's your friend from school. Why don't you go over?" No. And they were really anxious and panicking. But then they went home, jumped on their phone, and like text, "No, I seen you." So they couldn't connect in real. Like, it was like you ask young people today what's important in their lives. Snapchat, phones. That's what's important. That's what they value. It's a junk value. It's not worthy of being valued. Scary place.
Yeah, I don't envy it.
No.
Yeah, really.
I think there's a shift in that as well, though. I think Denmark have introduced sort of laws in terms of not giving phones.
Australia as well, over 16.
Yeah,
over 16.
So it's amazing. That there's going to be a cohort of kids that I think will miss the boat on that. And I'm sure the tech industry will have something to say about that. Like, props to you down.
Yeah, I think I read something recently about like Facebook having like the least amount of user take up now in the last number of years. You know, users are going down because the kids aren't interested in Facebook anymore. So they have to like find other ways to like hook them in Instagram, TikTok, and
they will,
and Reels and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, tobacco industry found a way.
Oh yeah. Jeez, the vapes. Oh my God, they're lethal. Yeah,
lethal. I walk past someone with a vape, and I smoked for years. I don't smoke anymore. But one of them smells like watermelon. I'm like, oh, that smells lovely.
Yeah, right. This is quite vulnerable for me. I've never smoked cigarettes, you know, because my granny died of fucking smoking, and so everyone in my family were smoking cigarettes, you know.
So you rebelled against.
Yeah, I didn't smoke cigarettes, but about 2 years ago, I swear to God, I got addicted to a vape. Someone gave me a blast of one at a festival. I was like, this is awesome, watermelon flavour, you know? And I was asking people like, oh, can I have a go with this? Can I have a go with this? And it was really, really nice.
Wow.
And then I found myself buying one day, and then I said to myself, "Oh fuck! Like this isn't good," you know.
Lucky you had the awareness to catch that.
I know, but like what it was giving me, it was giving me like a reduction in my anxiety. You know, it was
Yeah.
reducing my anxiety, bringing the thoughts down a little bit. You know, I felt like, oh, I feel like a little bit more relaxed. But
Chilled.
what I actually found was it was also reducing my cognitive ability. I felt like almost like pacified or sedated.
Wow.
And then I was kind of like at a festival there recently. It was in September, and I was looking around, and I just saw all these people like this, like dancing, dancing, dancing with the vapes in their mouth all the time. It's like they look like they're have soothers in their mouth. You know what I mean? I was like, is this the modern day pacifier? People sitting there with a doody, like with a little
Whoa.
doody in their mouth or a soother,
That
whatever
is
you call it, just like having
interesting.
this thing. And I was like, wow, this is really, really freaked me out, you know? So yeah,
God.
since then I completely stopped. I was like, no, I found like, you know, my mind was slowing down because, you know, I like to, yeah, I love my mind. I love how fast I can think, and you know,
Yeah, yeah,
sometimes it gets the
yeah.
better in me.
Yeah.
But
It's good. Yeah, it's a trade-off there.
yeah, but yeah, I was really kind of like, whoa, these vapes is like, there's something
A
seriously.
modern day pacifier. You could be onto something there. Don't tell the cigarette industry if they haven't copped onto that yet to be creating these suit or the vapes or something like that.
Yeah, but it's all the flavors and the colors,
Yeah.
and also like you look at the ground. You know, I was at Forbidden Fruit last year, and I looked at the ground, and you just see hundreds of these plastic things everywhere. And I was like, environmentally, this is also a disaster. You know, whatever about cigarettes, you know, the butt and
Yeah.
probably decomposed over a few years, but those things don't. Like,
Yeah, and they're actively targeting kids. That's the challenge. I feel I done a bit of work in secondary schools around this, and they found that second years, so 13, 14 years of age, they were the ones that were being most susceptible to the vapes and stuff like that.
Well,
Even the coloring of them, like they look like
the
sweets.
flavors,
They look
like, you
like
know, they're
sweets.
nice
Flavors, yeah.
It's-
Wow.
it's absolutely wild. But yeah, I'd love to touch on a little bit of like the neuroscience of recovery. What kind of happens to the brain? Like, I'd imagine on addiction, the brain is like a trophy, and you know, it's probably like slowly dying over time.
Yeah.
Like, what kind of happens? Do you get like more neuroplasticity? Does the brain ever recover? Because I know you've done imaging scans of your own brain and stuff as well. I'd love to hear a little bit about kind of yeah.
It's really interesting. One of the reasons why I have a scan of my brain. So Professor Johanna Ivor, she's a dean in Trinity College now. She's an amazing person. She came in when I was in detox in 2013. She came into the detox facility. She was looking to do a study on long-term methadone use of users in long-term addiction. And I thought it was brain damaged at this time. That was a real part of my journey. I actually thought it was brain damaged, and it was a moment of surrender and acceptance. Like, I can't fight this anymore. So this was right after the seizure when I was in hospital. So I was in detox, still thinking I might be brain damaged. But this spiritual shift had also kicked in, and I had this curiosity. I started reading books about Eastern philosophy and spirituality. It was a book by Robin Sharma, actually. It's a terrible title. It's the Monk Who Sold His Ferrari.
Yeah, I read that.
But it's a great book.
Yeah, and the 5 a.m. club.
Yeah.
Still not doing that.
Yeah, no. But that was my introduction. And I was really fascinated by these concepts.
Good stories.
Yeah, great stories. And Johanna came in, and she was doing psychometric testing in the detox before they brought me in for a brain scan. And she made this off the cuff comment. She says, God, you have a sharp mind. And I remember like, well, maybe I'm not brain damaged. Maybe I can even go back to college.
Wow.
So Johanna gave me a job teaching in Trinity 5 years later. So a lovely circular moment there. But that's how I got the brain scan. But I want to bring it back as well. When I went into that detox, I was sort of interested in all these new ideas, and I heard about mindfulness and meditation for the first time. And the mindfulness teacher, was the psychologist in there, says, "Oh, just focus on your breath." And I says, "I can't. I'm afraid of my chest and my heartbeat. That's where my anxiety is. I can't do that. Like, no way." It was like a miracle to even think I could do that. And she said, "Well, just focus on the air going in your nose, your nostrils, and coming back out. The cold air going in and the hot air going out." I said, "I don't think I'll be able to focus on my body. I'm terrified of my body, but let's give this a go," because there was something shifting inside of me. And this sounds weird, but it was like a miracle that I could focus on the air going in and out of my nostrils. And I felt a sense of calm. And I said, "Oh, there must be something in this." So that was the start of me getting interested in meditation and breath work and breathing and stuff like that. And I think, like, I got a scan of my brain several years later,
Yeah.
and we looked at areas of my brain in the limbic part of my brain. You could see the density of the structures changing. And like, I think the core aspect of my recovery was changing my relationship with anxiety, because that's what my problem was. I was using drugs to escape anxiety. And it's very hard to specifically say, right, they're the anxiety centers of the brain. It doesn't really work like that. It's more complicated than that. But the limbic structures had shifted over time. Psychologically and emotionally, I've changed my relationship with anxiety. And you could
Mm.
see my brain changed over time. But I think the big changes, like, that was a big change personally in me, and through neuroplasticity, changing my relationship with anxiety. But that allowed me to go to college. It allowed me to sort of exercise. So there's multiple other changes in my brain
Amazing.
as a result of that. But I think if you look at addiction recovery with the brain, like, it's an over amplification of the reward pathway. Your reward pathway gets hijacked. It's called the mesolimbic pathway of the
Mm.
brain. And like, you could like a drug or like a behavior, and over time, it taps into this sort of liking, into this wanting system. It takes over more of the reward pathway, and that can become a pathological craving.
Mhm.
And what's basically happening is, through the behaviors or the drugs, whatever it is, more dopamine is being dumped into that reward pathway. And when more dopamine is being released, it gives you that sense of pleasure, but more receptors get created to take in that dopamine at a different level. So all of a sudden, you become tolerant. You need more of that thing.
Yeah, it kind of reduces the baseline or something, doesn't it?
Reduces the baseline.
Yeah.
And it's like Anna Lemke, we had her in the documentary. I had her on my own podcast recently as well. Anna is amazing, and she talks brilliantly about this pain pleasure balance,
Mm.
where people think they experience pleasure. It could be through drugs, it could be through different things, through natural rewards as well. And I'll get onto that in a moment. So basically, what happens, you have a release of dopamine, the pleasure goes up, and then it doesn't come back down to baseline. It drops below
Yeah.
baseline, where you can feel that can be perceived as pain. So
Mm.
if you're perceiving pain, well, what you want to get back up, you want to chase the pleasure again.
Mm.
So you're on that yo-yo of constantly chasing pleasures. But something that happens as well, and I think this is really important. It's this hypothesis in psychology, in addiction psychology as well, and it relates to the brain. It's this restructured rewards hypothesis. So if you're taking crack cocaine or heroin or alcohol or other, like, dopamine inducing behaviors, you're going to restructure that reward pathway of your brain. And all of a sudden, you don't get the natural rewards that you used to get through human connection, through nature, through eating nice foods.
Mm.
All of a sudden, the reward systems are hijacked. So for people in recovery, we have to heal our brains first, and we have to heal that reward pathway. So I think abstinence is what you need.
Mhm.
And Anna Lemke talks about this brilliantly. And for some people, that's a couple of weeks. For some people, it's a couple of months. For me, I think a couple of months got me there, but it was really years before my brain felt fully healed in terms of chasing those rewards, or not
Wow.
not chasing those rewards. It was just a sense of feeling fully healed. But there's brain science and brain scans imagery that basically shows that the dopamine centers are getting back to a normal kind of baseline, where you're sort of enjoying the normalities of life.
Mhm.
And for me, I think a key part of my journey, and I think a lot of people can tap into this as well, like, you can talk about switching addictions, but I was very lucky and grateful to find a love for the human mind. Like, you
Mm.
could say I found a new addiction. I was
Yeah.
obsessed with learning, like,
Yeah.
obsessed.
It's
I
not a
got a
bad
bit
one.
obsessed with exercise.
Yeah.
Now, I found balance since then, but I hooked my dopamine. I put my dopamine hooks into something else, and that sort of helped me on my own trajectory. But I think that's what's really happening in the brain. It's like, this imbalance with the reward center of our brain and dopamine being released. And that's
Mm.
why abstinence is really, really key for recovery, to get the brain to recover in that sense.
Yeah, there's like deep physiological component to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
deep physiological component to it as well. And then, like, the brain is just so complicated, and there's so many other factors. Like, it's through connection. We could be talking about oxytocin,
Mm.
through like meditation and a connection with nature. We're talking about serotonin, feeling satisfied and feeling fulfilled, and everything gets out of whack. Not so
Mm.
much through the drugs itself, but through the behaviors that go with that.
Mm.
So that's the challenge. You need to bring yourself back into a normality and a life that just has, I wouldn't say rituals, more like good, solid daily habits to let your
Yeah.
brain heal over time. And I think
Yeah.
that's the key.
like soulful living or
Yeah.
some sort of meaning
Yeah.
in it, you know. And there is this quite like spiritual component to recovery, isn't there? Because
Massively.
I've never been through a recovery program, but I understand the AA, you know, the guy who made AA, it's like quite a spiritual program. And you know, I think a lot of recovery centers are kind of, in Ireland anyway, they're kind of run by the Catholic Church, as I'm aware. Is it, or have they kind of
No.
moved away from a lot of that now?
Yeah, some of them would be. Some of them
Yeah.
do. Like Coomera, we actually were down in Coomera for the documentary, and they have a very Catholic base. But even the AA, the big book in AA, was Bill and Bob were the two people that sort of created that movement. And it has got a spiritual component, and you say you have to believe in a power greater than yourself.
Yeah.
Now, that didn't really work for me. And it was
Okay.
really interesting because when I got out with detox and treatment, I thought, oh, Brian's out. It's going to be a parade. All my friends will be there. I had no friends anymore. I was like, I lost. So I disconnected.
Yeah.
And it was my lack of awareness to even know I lost those connections was fascinating as well. So AA was important for me, or NA at the time, to sort of connect with people, but the program wasn't really for me. And that power great in yourself, even though I was spiritual, I wasn't religious at all. There's a lot of God talk in there as well. So there is a spiritual and a religious element, and religion can work for people. If you believe, you have faith that God is helping you, that can be the placebo or the catalyst, or maybe there is a God. Who knows what I know? Like, you know, I could be wrong. I don't personally believe in God, but I believe in energies and powers that are greater than ourselves to a certain extent. So it has that component. But I think it's shifting now as well, and it's more inclusive for people that aren't believers. There's multiple different centers around as well. But I think a lot of recovery is a huge spiritual perspective on it. And mine was massively spiritual. Like, something happened to me that all I can say is the world just glowed. That's the only way. It felt entirely spiritual for me. It was like there was a presence, a stillness, a sense of. I remember going over to Portugal traveling a couple of months after it. And I was on the beach at one stage. I was doing a lot of meditation. I was doing a lot of reading a lot of spiritual texts. And I remember I was actually on a restaurant on the beach eating salmon. I'll never forget it. And there's this feeling of timelessness. And I remember thinking, what is going on? And everything slowed down. And I walked down on the beach, and I remember feeling the cold sand squishing through my toes and looking up to the sky, and it just felt timeless. It was like a vortex, a beautiful vortex I was in. And I remember having this knowingness that this isn't going to last forever. And I was saying, it was like my mind was sort of saying, oh, hold on to this, and I'll let it go. And it was like a greater sense of knowing there, just let it go, just enjoy this moment. And I remember being on the beach for a couple of hours, walking back to the hotel and being back in the normal surroundings of other people, but I still felt in this cocoon of timelessness. But I woke up the next morning and it was gone. And I remember chasing that for a while, like an addict. Oh, I want that. I want more of that. And I haven't found it since, funnily enough. But it's I think I got back in the rat race to a certain extent. I started writing my book, and I think that's why spirituality is always calling me back. I feel there's an other world out there that we can access that the Western world doesn't allow us to be too close to. And I think it's always going to call me back to an extent, you know. I just can't chase it.
Well, I think in the chasing is the suffering there, you know, because you're like attached to something. But like I love the work of Ram Dass, and for me it sounds like a moment of like pure awareness, you know.
That's what it felt like.
You're just there in awareness, everything around you, feeling it as it is, exactly like, you know, this is it. And it's presence. Eckhart Tolle talks about it as well, you know, the present moment, just being in the present moment. But like really getting that and feeling it, I've only got a glimpse of that a few times, you know.
Same. And I think what Eckhart Tolle experienced was 2 years of that. Or still experiences that. He had a really like big, I had an element of it in detox, and then I had it in Portugal, but it wasn't to the extent of the Eckharts of the world, you know. Yeah,
I've got it after psychedelics a number of times, and Vipassana as well, you know.
I've had it down psychedelics. I've played around a little bit with psychedelics, and I've had it with psychedelics as well. But I'm a bit scared of Vipassana. I think it's in my future.
Vipassana is so much harder than psychedelics.
I tell you,
oh my god, you get to day 6 and you're like, why am I here?
Whoa.
It's kind of like you're in prison a bit, you know. Well, definitely where I did it in India was the place was like prison. They give you these little cells to sit in. You go in this corridor, and they have like hundreds of these little rooms, and they're about, you know, just about a meter across, a meter wide, with a meditation cushion. You close the door and you're actually in a cell, and it's for meditating in
Is it locked?
peace. No, it's not locked. You can go in and out. Like you can use them for your for your own benefit. You can sit in the group room, and you're encouraged to sit in the group room a lot of time.
Right.
But traditional Vipassana centers also have the cells, you know. So I was actually sitting in the cell, being like, "Whoa, this is actually what prison would be like." You know what I mean?
I'm laughing.
Except without all this delicious curry that I'm getting twice a day.
I could see myself ruining everyone's Vipassana. I'd be dying to talk. The playfulness would come out inside of me. Yeah. I think it's an experience I would love to go through. Like a lot of psychedelics. Like I think people get confused with psychedelics. They think, oh, it's just a drug. You can call it what you like, but it's like animals don't get addicted to psychedelics. Like if you put animals with cocaine water or heroin water, they will overdose and die. They don't do that with psychedelics because it's not really reinforcing. Like it can be quite aversive, but it's a learning experience. And I think that's where people get mixed up with psychedelics, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Isn't there that famous experiment with the rats? You know, they put the rats in the cage, one bottle with cocaine water, one with water. And if a rat's there by himself, he'll always go to the cocaine. But if he's there with a bunch of other rats, he won't go to the cocaine water because he has a connection. He's being social.
Yeah. It was Johan Hari talked about that, and he says the opposite of sobriety isn't the opposite of sobriety isn't addiction, it's connection.
Yeah. Well, I love that.
It's not completely true. I think it's awareness is more the opposite, but it's the connection is a key piece.
And then you're talking a little bit about psychedelics. I know we're coming to the end now, but I think there's really wonderful work been done with people who have been through recovery and then working with psychedelics. I know in our own retreats we've had a lot of people through recovery programs, and the recovery programs have actually given them such a deep foundation because they know themselves in a really deep way, and then they come and they do have a psychedelic experience, and they already have that foundation. So I've seen some massive deep shifts in people because they've done a lot of that inner work already. But there's other psychedelics out there at the moment, and they're doing a lot of science around ibogaine for people with alcoholism, or treatment-resistant depression, and 5-MeO, DMT, Buffalo various toad medicine. I know they're doing those trials in Trinity College now.
Yeah, it's amazing that they're doing them in Ireland. They're very impressed with that,
cocaine use disorder as well. So they're doing that, I think, with psilocybin. So it's going to be a really interesting time, I think, in the next few years for addiction and.
We're not completely wild.
Huh?
We're not completely wild.
We're not completely
Irish.
yeah, exactly. But I think it's just fascinating how, like, you know, a lot of these psychedelics create this like neuroplasticity in the brain, bringing the brain back to this like kind of malleable state, and then we can introduce those new beliefs, new perspectives, and they can stick, you know.
Yeah. And it's really interesting because I was looking, I knew we were coming on, I knew we might be chatting about psychedelics, so I went over a little bit more of the research, and I found it fascinating because serotonin, there's certain neurotransmitters that are very fast acting within the brain, and serotonin is a fast acting neurotransmitter, but it's psychedelics sort of act on, especially LSD and psilocybin, they act on a serotonergic neurotransmitter, a receptor called, I think it's 5-HT2A is what it's called, and it acts as like a neuromodulator, which is like a slow acting neurotransmitter, so it allows time for those changes. I found that really, really fascinating. Like, I think, and we were having a conversation, like it's what's the word, the new research? Psychoplastogens. So it allows, and it allows a space to be able to create that neuro adaptability.
It's really fascinating. I know MDMA as well, it stops I think it's a serotonin reuptake inhibitor complex or something like that. So the more serotonin then stays in between the synaptic nerves for longer.
So similar to an SSRI or an antidepressant and stuff, right? That's interesting. Yeah.
So, but I think the real interesting thing about psilocybin is it's hitting this 5-HT2A complex, which a lot of traditional antidepressants don't hit, as far as I'm aware. So that's why people are finding a lot of huge relief from doing high doses of psilocybin. And some of the research has shown recently that, you know, 2 high doses of psilocybin has greater results for reduction in depression than taking SSRIs like over every day for over 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So, and psilocybin has very little side effects, where we know SSRIs have a lot of side effects.
And just to state the fact, I wouldn't be a proponent of SSRIs. They definitely have their place, and they can give people like a window to create some kind of therapeutic change. But the research sort of shows, there was a huge meta-analysis that shows that SSRIs work for depression, let's say 50% of the time. But if you don't do anything, that also works 50% of the time.
Wow,
so it nearly has a nil negative effect. This was a huge meta-analysis of studies. So it's like sometimes just time can change it as well. So it's like, I think SSRIs, especially for people that are deep in depression and really struggling, it can give them that space, but they have to put practices into place that's going to really give them long-term benefits. Whereas I think psychedelics, totally different animal. It creates that long-term change.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The way I kind of see it now is like, SSRIs, antidepressants, they're life-saving medication. They're totally needed in the toolbox. But where psychedelics kind of go really deep into the wound, like SSRIs are kind of like the Band-Aid on top.
Yeah.
And it's like you can take the pill and you can get on with it and everything's good. But, you don't necessarily have to do the deeper work, but you're then stuck on the SSRIs.
Yeah.
Where like the psychedelics and the big plant medicine ceremony journeys, you get in, you clean it out. Yeah, and then you got to do the work, you know what I mean? And sometimes the work is actually after the session, you know what I mean? It's like, that's the integration, that's the long term. And it's like, are you committed to it? Are you going to show up to it? Are you going to take like radical responsibility for your life? And if you don't, you're probably going to slide back into it, especially if you're going back into dodgy environments, like we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, it's funny you use the word radical. Of late, I keep on using the word rootless. Like I ruthlessly seek connection.
Yeah.
It's because the industries we're up against are ruthless. We've got to ruthlessly fight back. So it's like you've got to radically do the work. Radical responsibility. I love that because that's what you need. That's what's required a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, and people want the quick fix.
They do, unfortunately. Yeah. That's why society is.
yeah.
Let's not get into that now. We have
it's all like podcast.
5 minutes left. I want to finish on 2 little questions here for you. How would you support someone kind of lovingly or with compassion who are struggling with their emotional mental state or even addictions? Like what's the kind of the way in? Because I know a lot of people in those spaces can be very defensive, and it's like they have a lot of pressure on the outside. Oh, you need to change, you need to fix yourself, and it kind of has to come from within from people. I found like even people who want to go do psychedelics, I can't be evangelicals saying, oh, everyone needs to do psychedelics. I know now that has to come from within from people. So like how do you feel you can like kind of touch those people or get to them?
It's very difficult, and I think you've nailed it. Like what it is, like it's nearly for some people the pain of their present existence has to be greater than the pain of going through the change, and that's when people kind of move there, But it's like it's even that defensiveness you're talking about. Like I wouldn't say that the person's being defensive, the addiction or the mental health is being defensive. Like it's like imagine someone, let's say addiction, right? And they have a crutch that they feel is protecting them. It's and again, that's just a symptom of what's going on. It's not the problem. The problem could be a mental health challenge. Well, if you fix them and try to fix them and say, you need to do this, you need to do that, metaphorically speaking, you're pulling off their shield of armor and you're leaving them raw and vulnerable. So the addiction is going to defend itself and dig its heels in and say, no way is this happening. So the worst thing you can do is try to tell someone what to do. I remember talking to Gabor Mate about this, and I call it passive, that if you can open up a space just to be there for someone. And he was like, that's not passive, that's compassionate inquiry. You sit there and it's active, but you have to sort of create that space and try not to fix or tell them what to do so they feel heard. So I think what you're trying to do is you're trying to pull it out of them for them to realize it themselves. But I talked to Anna Lemke on this as well, and we had a great discussion on it. And it's like, we have to stop enabling. Like enabling the addiction, and codependency is huge out there. And she says it's nearly harder to fix codependency than it is addiction itself, which is I thought was quite striking.
Wow.
But we nearly came up with this idea between us, like we need to facilitate safe consequences. So if you have someone in the depths of despair, whether it's addiction or mental health, if you enable that, and especially with addiction, it makes more sense. Like if they're drunk on the floor and are blacking out, let them wake up on the floor. Don't get them to bed. Let them wake up and say, oh my God, I fell asleep on the floor. If they fall asleep in the garden and they're not going to freeze to death, leave them in the bloody garden. Those safe consequences could actually save their lives. Like if you're trying to ring in and keep their job going because they're going to lose their job, let them lose their job and might save their life.
That's the wake up.
That's the wake up call that they actually need. So you need to get a little bit ruthless about it. We go back to
tough
the
love
word
almost, isn't it? Like do it from a loving
it's
place.
Scary, but I think that's what we've got to do. We've got to be really realize that the potential massive dangers, which could be death from the addiction.
Wow, yeah.
It's not easy though.
No, I'd imagine
not
It's
easy.
not easy because it affects the whole family unit as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does.
Wow. Oh, Brian, it's been amazing to have you
I
on the
can't, I
podcast.
can't believe
What a
it's up on
conversation.
time when you said that.
I think we're overtime probably.
I absolutely loved it, Dara.
Yeah.
I went places that I haven't talked about in a while. So
Oh, great.
a privilege. Yeah, it really
It's
was.
been, super wonderful
Thank
to have you here. Is there anything you'd like to touch on before we finish, or
God, nothing
anything-
springs to
any-
mind. Do
any-
you know what I'll finish on? It's just something simple, because I think I always try to give low hanging fruit to people. Something simple. Have a think about what's important to you. What is important in your life going forward, and ask yourself: is the decisions and the actions you're going to take going to make your boat go faster? Do they align with what's important in your life? It's a great guidance system for life. It's how I live my life.
Oh, beautiful, Brian. You're
Thank you.
inspiration.
Cheers.
And
Dara.
my mum's one of your biggest fans as well. So as I mentioned that there, yeah, she loves following all your stuff,
Super.
But yeah, wonderful conversation. Hopefully the first of many can continue this. You're an inspiration. Thank you for the work you're doing and all the work you're championing out there and showing that change is possible in the world. And yeah,
Could I throw one thing
Yeah.
in, Dara? Actually, for anyone listening, and just if they want to go onto my website, I have courses in there, and if they use the word resilience, they get free access to any of those courses. So
Oh,
it's
amazing.
unlocking the secrets of addiction recovery, breaking bad habits, negative self-talk and stuff like that as well. But just go into the coupon section, put in the word resilience, get free access to all them courses. Just something to give away.
amazing. Thanks so
Oh,
much, Brian.
delighted.
Yeah, and I'll put all the links and info about yourself in the show notes. And if you listen this far, thank you so much. It's been a wonderful episode. Thanks for being here. And yeah, hope you all have a great week. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Thank you all for listening. What a wonderful episode. I hope you found Brian's insights as inspiring as I did. His journey from addiction to becoming one of Ireland's leading voices in neuroscience, resilience and recovery is a reminder that change is possible. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to like and subscribe and share it on to those who might find it interesting. Until next week, stay curious.